Hey team, today we're looking at how leaders use student voice to create learner efficacy. Do your students have a voice? Do you have processes in place to ensure that they do? And then what happens because they have spoken? Schools have done a really good job at ensuring that students can tell us what they are learning. And even better, some schools have worked hard to have their students explain why they are learning and what this looks like when they've achieved it. We know students can share the learning outcomes or a focused learning question. Success criterion are a part of their regular learning process. Some well-coached students have the ability to identify gaps in their knowledge and can tell you what their next learning goal is. These are all excellent examples of students who are beginning to manage their learning, making gains towards being self-managing learners. We have students leading learning conferences, sharing evidence of their learning, discussing data points, progress and next targets. Students who can schedule their learning into learning blocks, meet deadlines and manage their time. Students use exit tickets to show their learning or to leave next questions. They use traffic lights to indicate understanding, Kahoot, CFU, checking for understanding, thumbs up, thumbs down. These examples make our hearts swell, knowing we are truly on the journey of developing a culture of learning. But we're only partway there. We really are. When? Yes. What? Yes. Why? Yes. But have we taught our children how to learn? Earlier we discussed teacher efficacy and we looked at leader efficacy, but what about student efficacy? We visit classes to observe teachers in action, and we've been trained to focus on the students and not on the teacher. Rather to focus on the students and observe their progress through the lesson, levels of engagement. But how much of this do we assume and how much do we guess? How do you really know? The only way to truly know is by interviewing the students and going through a learning interview. To participate in a learning interview though, our students need to understand how to learn and how to talk about learning. Do we teach this? Do we teach students to learn? Do we create an efficacy for them? Do our students know where and when and how to learn best for them? Have they been taught the skills of learning? What back to exit tickets? Strategy of having students record a sentence or two at the end of this lesson began as an evaluation of learning, not content. They have been misused and become, write down something you've learned in this lesson. And the teacher collects them at the end of the lesson and more often than not does nothing with them. And if we ask 2 or 3 questions instead, is there anything that we covered today that you need more help with? What did we do, or I do, that made learning easier or harder? What would you change about today's lesson to make it clearer for you? This could be a quick discussion, it could be a quick Google form, it could be a sticky note or written into a modelling book. The challenge is we don't ask these questions. And remember, don't ask students unless you intend to use this information. Information, that means to inform. To inform your work, your teaching, your planning, their learning. So back to the learning interview. We have 10 key questions. What do you think you are learning? Why do you think you are learning this? How will you know when you've learnt it? What do you think you need to do now to get better at or to improve your learning in? How do you think you learn? What happens in this class that helps you to learn? How do the comments or the data discussions your teacher has with you about learning help you? How does your teacher help you think? When you are learning, what helps to make this easier? And if you could change something to make it easier to learn in this class, what would that be? Now, if you whip down under this picture in this image on the blog site, you'll see one that says Student Voice 1. And there are a whole lot of feedback from students and ideas that they gave us as a result of these learning interviews. These questions must be at the centre of our planning and student learning. Have we created a consciousness with our students about learning to learn? From experience, once we use tools like this as part of an observation process, this becomes the critical piece of feedback that the teacher seeks. The teacher doesn't really care what we think and what we've got to say. They're less interested in your opinion and more interested in what the students have said. These are teachers who have a growth mindset. They make no excuses. They genuinely are excited and slightly nervous about the feedback their students give and really use it to drive their practice. This is ultimate action. Student voice at the centre of learning. Let's use a success criterion, a success measure. Are teachers teaching learning? Can students talk about how to learn? And are teachers putting into action student feedback, student voice? When we achieve this, we know our students are moving to the efficacy opportunities. This really is student-led learning. This is true student voice. This is a teacher who is truly a facilitator. It is this that evidences genuine, respectful relationship.